Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Azeroth Daily for the 14th of March 2011. My name is TotalBiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of WoW news and comment. Obviously, we've had a few days off as a result of the Sweden trip, but we are back on schedule now and everything should hopefully be okay. The headlines today. The Blizzard art gallery has been updated with a variety of interesting Death Knight-related shots. Some nice stuff there, if I'm totally honest. I particularly like this one, which looks rather suspiciously like Arthas on some kind of flaming horse. May indeed be invincible, but it's a rather odd way to have a look at Arthas there. Mostly because you're used to seeing him in a kind of frost environment, whereas this is very clearly quite fiery. Nonetheless, it is a great shot, and you can download all of the originals with the link in the description below this video. The latest round of new player tips has been released, with a large focus this week on the art of fishing. And if you are a new player looking for anything, absolutely anything in regards to how to fish and the ways to make money from it, this is a good place to have a look. And it's a lot of community contribution as always with these new player tips sections. A new selection of EU community news has been released, and it covers a wide variety of foreign language sites, including WoW Hungary, that has reported on the Hungarian raid progress, and indeed notes that leading guild Grim Funeral recently managed to defeat Nefarian. Also, Turkish fan site WoW-TR has just celebrated its 4th birthday, so congratulations to them. All that, many more posts from the foreign language sites, as well as the roundup of this week's comics, and notable forum threads, available in the description below this video. And before we go on to the Daily Blues, this isn't really news, but I'm going to highlight it anyway, because I think it's extremely worthwhile. And this is a post from the EU forums, which is basically asking Blizzard to bring a new virtual pet into the store, with 100% of the profits given to help the Japan disaster relief charities. I would strongly suggest to Blizzard that they do just that, and would like to add my support to this particular venture. If you do wish to give before that happens, however, I've included a few links in the description below this video, which will allow you to donate to charities directly working to help the survivors of the Japan disaster. And with that, it's time for your Daily Blues. Perhaps the most important blue post today, which as far as I'm concerned could qualify as news as well, is the fact that the first round of the Blizzard Q&A has now been released. So all of the questions that were answered are now available right now. You see a very small selection of them on the screen, but I'd recommend you go and read all of them in the description below this video. And I will also be covering this in great detail on Friday's Blue Please show, which airs on Friday at 8 PM GMT. So please, by all means, go and check that out if you want some in-depth and no doubt rather ranty discussion, but there's some great information there. Nazgul posts on the US forums in regards to Ghostcrawler, who has stopped posting on the US forums and believes that it's partially his fault, indeed, as well as the fault of everyone that turned around and treated Ghostcrawler badly. However, Bashiok turns around and says that actually that really wasn't why he's backed off at all, and they believe that concerted Q&As and blogs are a far more effective way of communicating with the community rather than blue responses, which are very easily buried and indeed taken out of context. Considering the amount of arguments that seem to spring up surrounding these blue posts, I can't exactly blame him, but I would like to point out that, as always, the community does have some hand in this, and this is why we cannot have nice things. Some random forum alt posts about the rehashing of old content, and is asking whether or not old content is going to be redone every patch. Goes on to list a number of rehashed pieces of content, and Zarhym responds saying that there's no hard and fast rule as regards to updating existing content, and they do it when they feel it's fun and makes sense within the lore, but in the grand scheme of things, they haven't actually reintroduced all that much content per patch and expansion. Which I suppose in the grand scheme of things is correct, although I am seeing a rather large amount of rehashed content as we go through, and that started happening in Wrath and is now happening on a more intense level as we continue through, which I do not believe is a particularly good thing to do. That said, it's a particularly odd thing to say when we're playing an expansion that was based on rehashing old content to the point where they changed pretty much everything in Azeroth as regards to 1-60 questing content, and that wasn't a bad thing. So I don't know, I still dislike it. I think it made sense for Cataclysm, but it doesn't make sense to take these old dungeons and bring them back in when you could very, very easily bring in new ones, and there are plenty of areas within the world that would very easily support them. far as I'm concerned, it's just lazy. Now, with that, it's time for your daily grind. Rather appropriately, after that rant, this one introduces a character that you might be familiar with. This guy used to be in Shattrath. It's Grifter, folks. He is back, and for some inexplicable reason, he's now in Stormwind, and he will lead you on a quest to go and see Bud, who is involved in some kind of crazy scheme with him in regards to getting hold of old artifacts. The quest itself is not all that interesting, and it in fact involves going to Bud, who is not even on the PTR yet. So obviously you can't do this quest as of yet. It is a lead-in to the Zolomon content, but I found it interesting, one, because of the character that gives it to you, 2, the location of where that character actually is, and 3, the fact that once you get there, you can notice a number of conversations between Vol'jin and members of the Silvermoon Guard and higher-ups from the Blood Elves. Very interesting stuff. And with that, it's time for your weekly feature. This is Machinimondays. This is a fairly basic machinima from a producer called Ace Van Cleef, and I'm having a look at it. It is called the Stormwind Tourist Office, and it's got a very interesting and amusing concept behind it. Unfortunately, it's not all that well executed. I do like the fact that it was filmed in-game, which makes perfect sense, and also made use of stationary camera shots, which is a good way of framing the action as opposed to having you jerk around all over the place. I've seen plenty of bad camera work in my time with films that are produced within the actual game as opposed to model and map viewer. However, the voice acting is not what I would call great. It's unfortunately got an incorrect aspect ratio to the point where there are huge black borders on the side of the actual video. It looks like it was filmed in 4:3, which is not a particularly good idea. And sadly, the joke doesn't seem to be all that entertaining. Although, at the end of it, I do like the fact that they end up going back into the tourist office and you've got the fight noises and the shaky camera. So, it's not like there isn't some creativity here. It's just very raw and unrefined and could use an awful lot of work. So, on that basis, I'm going to give it 2 trolls out of 5. If you wish to have a look at the full video, you can do so. Go and check out the link in the description below this video. And with that, it's time for the roundup of the postcards from Azeroth, which were supposed to be put out on Friday, but obviously I was in the air, so that makes it a little bit difficult. Yes, last week, I believe we asked you to take a picture of the quest mob of your nightmares. So I have a few shots for you right here. We'll have a look through and see which is the best. Well, I'm implying that I picked the best one. Normally, I just pick the one that amuses me the most. Whatever the case, that's what I define as the best, and I'm sticking to it, folks. So I'm going to start off right here with this one coming in from Justin Paget. It's the bloody whale shark. Had to be the whale shark. That is, in fact, a nightmarish creature. Nothing should look like that. Nothing at all. This one comes in from Thomas Christoph Kanstrup. And the shade in Naxxramas, yes, they were cool when they first came out in vanilla, but you keep seeing them everywhere you go. That's actually very, very true. The shades are all over the place. They were hanging around, particularly in Wrath of the Lich King. Yes, they do start to freak people out. As you close your eyes, all you see is a damn shade. This one comes in from Nicola what the heck is that? That's a great name, but Prilshvek, I believe. And apparently, that tree wants her dead. That is quite the terrifying tree, if I'm honest. I don't go anywhere near that. It's not a mob, but it certainly should be. This one comes in from Ian Churchill. Arg indeed. Don't even get me started. You know what that one is, folks. This one comes in from Linda, who says, not 1, but 2 Jormanga worms. For some reason, these are my 2 most hated mobs because they remind me of the day Blizzard went too far with their new content. Yes, it was the day that Ulduar died. And they were singing, bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Stop that, TotalBiscuit. The next one comes in from Philip Dunbar, who says, this goes out to all the Wrath babies who scream and whine about Cataclysm dungeons being too hard. I have 3 words for you. Heroic Magister's Terrace. The mobs of my nightmares. The opening trash. You really need to keep on your toes for those guys. You did. They were rather nightmarish. This one comes in from Mads Olavjuk. What the? Christ! You guys with your crazy names. What is this? Jehen Barkin. And the picture says it all for this one. Yeah! Just no. Just no. Don't you dare do things like that. Yeah. Those things are crazy. I hate it when that happens. The evil, evil texture bugs. This one comes in from Luna Peterson. The cuteness, it's all just a disguise. Yes, when you close your eyes, all you see are death penguins. This one comes in from Linus Workshop. Ag! Yeah, that's not the kind of thing you want to see outside your city. I remember when that was kited. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And, of course, I remember before it was Krull. I remember when it was the original Lord Kazakh. And, yeah, that was the stuff of nightmares. You literally could not kill him in that situation. One comes in from Robbery Vandenberg. It's Gammon! Gammon is now indeed a nightmare, although I don't think he was before. This one comes in from Justin Eldridge. A nightmare mob, the unkillable mob. It stalks, it follows, it joins a raid, it stands in the fire. It gives a debuff to the entire raid, deducting $25 from their wallets, and it was forged from the tears of noobs itself. I give you that retarded horse. Ugh. Yes, I do not blame you for that at all. And the winner, ladies and gentlemen, has to go out to this one for reminding me of the stuff of my nightmares as well. It's from Nicholas, and he says, Cthulhu trash, need I say more? Well, that in fact is Oro right there, but of course you have to pass through a lot of trash in order to get to him as well. Oh, God, Cthulhu trash, of all the things to remind me of, hours and hours and hours. To the point where one guild actually cheated to get past it and got themselves banned. It was that bad. Terrifying. You win yourself the card. Now please never speak of it again. Contact me over Facebook for that one. And I do have a new Postcards from Azeroth contest for you, and I'll tell you about that after the mailbox, which is coming up right now, I might add. With that, it is time for the mailbox. See, I'm not allowed to introduce any segment without actually saying that. It gets people very, very upset, so we don't want to be doing anything like that. Now, this is a fairly long one, so it'll probably be the only one I address today, and it comes in from Atticus on Moonguard US, who says this. Morning, afternoon, or evening, TB. I've been playing since late Burning Crusade, and I'm an avid role player and lore geek. When the Burning Crusade came out, it was more Horde-focused in terms of its story, but only slightly. On the other side, Wrath of the Lich King was a little more Alliance-focused this time around, but again, not by much. The problem I've seen with Cataclysm is there's this massive imbalance between quality of the Horde and Alliance storylines. The Horde has all new storylines, political turmoil, leaders who actually feel like they're leading by being at the front lines or what have you. Their quests are rich and deep and quite rewarding from start to finish. There are some quests on the Horde side that are just amazing. The entire Horde Stone Talon line is just wonderful in its story and development. You actually feel like the Horde is progressing and changing around you as you quest. However, the Alliance is the opposite. We start strong in many of the starting zones, but as we push out, the same foes we've always been fighting rear their heads once again. The Defias are back in Westfall, the Blackrock is still in Redridge, the Worgen and the Undead are still in Duskwood, and that elite mob we supposedly released from his torment in Undeath is still kicking around. We don't have faction leaders in so much as we have NPCs and raid bosses, where you feel like the members of the Horde are active and engaged in their faction's conflict. Nothing like that happens on the Alliance side. There's a perfect opportunity for Tyrande to take up fighting again, but she doesn't. She leaves it to her Owlkin hubby. None of the Alliance leaders feel like they have any part to play in the conflict between Varian, the Council of the Three Hammers, Valen, Gen, and Tyrande. They've done less than the gnomish faction leader. Our zones also feel a bit unfinished in terms of story, and if they are finished, the finished product turns out to be parody or humor-focused. Gilneas is a beautiful zone with a deep story and interesting characters. We get all the way through there, and suddenly we have to switch to the Forsaken to find out how it actually ends. Does anything in Gilneas happen after? Not really. Even if it said it's a war zone. For every zone like Darkshore, which I believe is the best Alliance zone story-wise, we get 3 zones focusing on a CSI parody, a Rambo homage, and having wacky and zany adventures with Flintlock. In the Twilight Highlands, the Horde has a deep storyline focusing on revenge, civil war, and air combat. The Alliance runs around with Flintlock having above-mentioned zany adventures. I've heard rumors that with the release of Zul'Gurub and Zulaman, Horde and Alliance will be working with Vol'jin in order to secure the areas. Horde and Alliance. So apparently there are no Alliance leaders or factions with vested interests in either A, putting down the horrible troll threat, or B, securing a massive section of land just south of Stormwind. Nope, not a single leader would be interested in that. I'm just wondering what you think about all of this. I know you've played a bit of both in the beta. Does the Alliance have a weaker storyline, or am I just jelly, bro? Well, from what I've seen in most areas, it does seem to have a weaker storyline, but then again, it also comes down to personal preference. I mean, you've got to have a balanced perspective on this as well. For the stuff like Darkshore and the zany adventures, as you were saying, like the Redridge stuff and the stuff in Westfall, we also have zones like Ashara, which are huge, massive jokes. I mean, most of the quests in Ashara are gimmicks. It's a massive, gimmicky zone based around goblins. And we got this race whereby every quest they do is a gimmick, because that's the nature of them. Goblins are the Ferengi of WoW, they're the comedy relief, and any quest involving them will no doubt be zany, and most likely more zany and more explosive than any gnomish quest would be. I think that WoW in general has taken a turn for the ridiculous in many zones, although that is balanced out by the fact that it does have a number of really good zones as well. From what I've heard from the Alliance, they're not all that happy with the state of their quests, and they do not believe they get stuff as good as Stone Talon. But the thing is, you also get Stone Talon, and you do get very dramatic moments in there as well, although I wouldn't say that the Alliance version of Stone Talon is as good as the Horde by any stretch. I think there is a bit of an imbalance there, but it does come down, once again, to personal perspective and preference. I don't believe it's something you can objectively define as good or bad. And therein lies the problem, really. You can't turn around and say to Blizzard, well, what you've just done here is bad because A, B, and C. They'll just turn around and say, well, that's your opinion, but in reality, that doesn't have a basis in objectivity. So what can you do about it? That said, I do agree that the Zul'Gurub and Zul'Aman thing is pretty much a cop-out. Yes, Vol'jin is the guy who's spearheading all of it, and I also saw when I landed there that he is working with the Blood Elves, and I couldn't see a damn alliance in sight, so it is not great. I think there might be a few High Elves knocking around there, but barely any alliance presence whatsoever, so they can't be all that concerned. It is a little bit weird. I would have expected another alliance leader to at least get involved, and it's bizarre that they didn't. Okay, folks, that's me done for the day, but before I go, I'd like to announce this week's Azeroth Daily Postcards from Azeroth contest, and this one is going to be on the subject of scenic holiday destinations. I would like you, indeed, to use the Stormwind Tourist Office in order to find yourself your ideal WoW holiday destination. I would like you to explain as well what you would do there. What would be your particular activity? So take a picture, perhaps with some friends, take your whole family to some either picturesque or somewhat bizarre location in Azeroth. Take a screenshot and tell me exactly what holiday activity you would do there. Send it over to facebook.com/cynicalbrit. Make sure to post the description of that, and we'll show you the best at the end of Friday's show. Thanks a lot, guys. Please remember to thumb up and favorite this video if you liked it, and feel free to thumb down and write a strongly worded letter if you did not. My name's been TotalBiscuit, and I will see you next time.